Hello, Giants fans. Welcome back to the Everything New York Giants channel with me, New York Giants fangirl. Today we're going to get into your questions. It is a bye week for the Giants. We can all enjoy this weekend and relax and not have to worry about stressing about our favorite team. So let's go ahead and answer some of your questions from Instagram. So this one is about Tiki Barber. So for those of you who missed it, Tiki is a semi-finalist for the 2024 Hall of Fame. And the question that I got was, what's your opinion on Tiki Barber being on the ballot? Mine, he was a great Giant and exciting to watch. Now, I also had another question that was the opposite of this and basically was like, after everything that Tiki said, do you think that he should still be considered a real Giant and in the Hall of Fame? And when you're looking at him from a player perspective only and what he did on the field, it was unbelievable. I think that he absolutely deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, it's unfortunate that he retired earlier than he probably would have liked. Based on, the following year, them winning the Super Bowl. But it is what it is. Hindsight's 2020, as they say. So he had a great career with the Giants. And listen, I understand that a lot of people, a lot of fans turn their back on him with everything that he said about Eli. And I fully understand that. I don't think what he said about Eli was okay. And from what I understand, him and Eli had a conversation about it. And they fixed things. Did it take longer than it should have? Probably. But I think that, at the end of the day, people say things maybe they don't mean, and he apologized, and apparently they are fine. So I'm okay with Tiki. I think he's made some questionable life decisions. So when it comes to football only, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He was a great player, exciting to watch, and killed it out there. As for him being a Giant, look, once a Giant, always a Giant, and like I said, he apologized to Eli. It is what it is. The thing that I think is so interesting about this is that I have heard from people who are very anti the Tiki thing and are like, I don't even think that he should be considered a Giant, whatever. But if you think that, then I hope you don't love OBJ, because OBJ also said some questionable things about the Giants and the organization. And to be fair, none of us like Dave Gettleman. So whatever he said about DG is fine. I agree with him on that. But he also said some not nice things about Eli. And I think a lot of fans forget about that. They're only willing to say, oh, well, Tiki was the only one who ever said anything bad. But the reality is that there are other former Giants who have said not nice things about their teammates, including Eli Manning, and if you're going to feel one way about one of them, you should feel one way about the other. So I've forgiven both of them. I'm neither of their biggest fans. I don't like that they went out and talked shit about Eli, but the past is the past. So okay, next up, what should the Giants' plan for wide receivers be next year? Any free agents to pursue? So as of right now, I think the wide receiver core next year is going to look like this. It's going to be Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. And that might be it, because I think that Paris Campbell's going to be gone. He was only on a 1-year deal. Isaiah Hodgins was on a 2-year deal as of last year, so I think his contract is going to be up. And then I think that might be it. Who am I missing? I know I'm missing people. So outside of that, I think they're definitely going to draft a wide receiver, and I could absolutely see them bringing in a free agent too. I believe that is T. Higgins maybe it's not Jamar Chase. I believe one of them is going to be available. And listen, if I am Joe Shane, we finally have some money next year. I would do whatever I can to bring in a number 1 wide receiver, because I think that immediately it would be a help to whoever the quarterback is. And there's no denying that we can't use that type of help. So, okay, so the only guy that I missed was Sterling Shepard, who I think we all agree is not going to be here next year. And then they have Gunnar Olszewski listed as a wide receiver. He's not a wide receiver. I mean, I guess he's a wide receiver, but they don't use him from an offensive perspective. So yeah, we're looking at 3 guys that are going to officially be on the roster next year. So definitely expect them to bring in some wide receivers. I think it'll be a mix between free agency and the draft. And I would be okay with whatever free agent they bring in. I think at the end of the day, they do a really good job of picking guys that are team players, that are tough, smart, and dependable, and that are going to be reliable. and good additions to this team. Is DeVito becoming a folk hero in New York, New Jersey? First of all, this kid was signing autographs at a hoagie shop yesterday. So the answer to that is yes. I think at the end of the day, regardless of what you think about Tommy DeVito on the field, he's given a lot of Giants fans, myself included, something to actually look forward to and continue to watch Giants football throughout the rest of the season, because I've heard from a lot of you guys that when they were 2-8, you were like, I'm over it. I don't want to watch Giants football. This team is pathetic, which is 100% fair. So I think the fact that we are at least having something to look forward to on Sundays, it's not the most amazing offense and he's not lighting it up out there, but he's done enough to win games. So I think that alone, and the whole hometown hero story, is a New Jersey kid, went to Bosco, the whole thing. I think it's a good story and it's heartwarming, and it's just gives me a good reason to actually watch Giants football continually and not want to bang my head against the wall as I'm watching them on the field. Are you happy with the winning, or would you rather have us tank and get Caleb or May at quarterback? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I am not on board with the tank. We have watched absolutely horrific Giants football for the last 10 years. I've seen enough losses. I do not want to continually watch this team lose. And I understand we're talking about a short-term versus long-term solution here. Obviously, the short term is they lose the rest of this season, and then bringing in a quarterback is ideally going to help this team get moving. The reality is that bringing in a quarterback is not all of a sudden going to make this offense a top 10 offense in the NFL. There are a lot of things that need to be changed. A quarterback is just a piece of that. So I'm at the point where I'm done watching bad football. I am over watching this team lose. I want to see them win. Yes, I know that having a good draft pick is going to help us in the future. But if I had the option, I am rooting for them to win, and I want them to win. And if they don't win and we end up with a top 5 pick, then so be it. It's the best of both worlds. But I'm not going to sit here and watch the games and actively root for them to make mistakes and lose, because I am sick of being an embarrassment in the NFL. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I want to win. And listen, we still have a chance, guys. There still is a chance that they can make the playoffs. I'm just saying. If we're outside the top 5 for the draft, where are we going outside of quarterback? So I think there's a lot of different options here. From everything that I'm hearing about Marvin Harrison Jr., he is a top 5 talent. So if we have the top 5 pick and Marvin Harrison Jr. is still there, I could absolutely see the Giants getting him. I also think that there's a possibility that they could go after a really good lineman. Joe Shane said that they will go best player available. I also will not be surprised if Marvin Harrison's gone and the 2 quarterbacks are gone, if they say we're going to trade out and draft a quarterback or whoever in later rounds. So I think it's way too early to tell. Obviously, we have no idea what pick we're even going to have in the draft, and that will make a huge difference. But I think as of right now, I could see them going wide receiver or offensive line. I think those would be the top 2, unless there's an amazing edge rusher like Kayvon coming out, who is a top 10 pick. I haven't really heard much about that, so I'm not so sure, but that would just be my guess as of right now. Next question, do we have a chance, in your opinion, to make the playoffs? Yes, we do. I know 8 losses is definitely going to be a challenge, and it means that we have to win every single game moving forward, which is also going to be a challenge. I think, you take it week in and week out. When you look at the Packers and you look at the Rams and you look at the Saints, they are winnable games. Obviously, the offense needs to step up big time. You can't put up 10 points and expect to win football games. So we need more from the offense. There's no question about that. But I think those are winnable games. Obviously, the most challenging is going to be the Eagles. We could luck out in week 18 if they decide to rest their starters because they've already locked up the home field advantage. So there's a potential there that we could win week 18. The bigger challenge is going to be the Christmas game. But like I say, week in and week out, any given Sunday, anything can happen in the NFL. You never really know. The Cardinals beat the Cowboys, and I could go on and on about upsets that we've seen so far this year. So you never know. I am rooting for wins. Like I said, I would love nothing more than this team to make the playoffs. I think it would be a good boost for everyone, for the players, the coaching staff, the front office, you name it, the fans. What's there not to like about making the playoffs again? So is it going to be a challenge? Yes. Is it possible? Also, yes. Have you tried the local legend Tommy Devito sandwich yet? I have not. I live in Connecticut, so I haven't been to Natoli's, which I believe is the deli. I'm sure there are other Italian delis that do it. I'll have to go to my local one and ask them. I feel like vodka sauce on chicken parm is a little much. Like, it could be delicious, but it could also, I'm lucky I don't suffer from heartburn, but I feel like if you're someone who has heartburn, maybe you should skip that because it could just be a little too rich for you. But it's worth trying anything once, So I'd give it a try. Was this past Sunday your last home game for you this season? It was, until I decided that now the Giants are still in it if they beat the Packers on Monday night. They didn't flex the game, which means that they're all thinking what we're thinking. You know, it could be a little preview of things to come in the playoffs. So I am now going to that game. So I will be at the Packers game. I hope it's not that cold. I will be bundling up and maybe wearing this vest along with 10 other layers. But I'm excited. I'll be there. I'll be rooting for the Giants to win. And maybe I'll walk out of MetLife with my third win this season, which would be the biggest amount of wins I've ever had at MetLife in a season. To be fair, it's also the most amount of games that I've gone to at MetLife in a season. So that helps, but you never know. Speaking of Green Bay, will DeVito start against Green Bay? I would let the kid play. Now, there's a lot of talk that there's a possibility that Tyrod is going to be ready after the bye week and could potentially be ready to go for the Packers game. I think even if that's the case, they're still going to start DeVito and they're going to have Tyrod as the backup because God forbid DeVito gets hurt or whatever. You want Tyrod to be elevated and be ready to play. I think we would all trust Tyrod as the backup more so than Easton or Matt Barkley. So I think if he's healthy enough and ready to play, he'll be activated, but I do still think that Tommy DeVito is the starter. At the end of the day, you want these young players to develop, and now is the perfect time for it. Even if DeVito has a tough game and a rough night, then I still think it's worth him learning and developing because we need to see if he can possibly be a 2 or 3 next year because Tyrod's not going to be here. So we need to know what we're really working with him. So I think it's important that we give him the reps. How different does this defense look without Dexter Lawrence? Did Sunday's game shed light on him? I think we all know who Dexter is as a player and how much he does for this team. I think obviously when you remove him out of the equation, you're definitely concerned about what the defense is going to look like. Now, obviously we were going against the Patriots, so when we're going against a better offense, it will be more telling, I think. But I have to give props to guys like A'Shawn Robinson and Nacho who stepped up and played well. And Kayvon got another half a sack. You had Jihad Ward who stepped up. So I think ultimately when it comes to the defense or offense, when you're missing a certain player, you just need cohesive football. And obviously it needs to come on all sides of the ball, but whether it's an offensive or defensive perspective, if you're missing the best player for the defense, it is Dexter Lawrence. If you're missing him, you just want other guys to step up and do their job, and I think we saw that on Sunday. Now, again, the test will be if Dexter is not ready to go after the bye, and we're going against the Packers, which is a little bit better of an offense, probably much better considering the Patriots offense is so bad, but you want to see more from those guys like A'Shawn and Nacho and maybe even DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley. Like those are the guys that you want to see step up, get the reps. No one is going to be Dexter Lawrence. Those guys are never going to be the talent level and the play that Dexter has. But if they can be, half of that or 3/4 of that, then we are in good hands. Do you think Bobby Johnson will be on the team next year? No, I think Bobby Johnson is going to be one of the first coaches to go, unfortunately. I felt like the way that Joe Shane was talking in his press conference, the way he talked about Evan Neal made me feel like that was a little bit of a dig at the offensive line coaching staff. Just that, Neal was a really good tackle in college and he's just not in the NFL. And I'm sure part of that is the transition. Part of it is him being young. Part of it is him having all these injuries. And part of it is him just playing like shit. But at some point you have to wonder, how do you go from being that amazing player in college to just being a complete bust from what we've seen on the field? So I do think coaching is a part of that ultimately. And Neal does need to play better. But I think when you look at the development of the offensive line and you have guys like Tyree Phillips, who did better in Philadelphia and then comes back to the Giants and seems like he's having a setback or a regression, you have to wonder at some point it has to be on the coaching staff, and I do think that he will not be here next year. So what I would do is if I were the Giants, I would just dangle money in the face of the Eagles offensive line coach. I forget his name at the moment, but that's who I would bring in because I feel like he could really help us. That would be nice. Favorite NFL player not on the Giants? That's a good question. So this is not related to that, but if we want to talk about coaches for a second, it's absolutely Mike McDaniel. The guy's incredible. I think he's hilarious. He's a player's coach. Everyone loves him. He's great with the media, and he just seems like he's doing a really good job in Miami, and I give him a lot of credit as a second-year head coach. He's just absolutely killing it. So I love that guy. Favorite player who's not on the Giants. There are a lot of guys that I do really like. Their names are all escaping me right now. I'm trying to think. Okay, this is not going to go over well, but when you're talking about players and people as a whole, I really like Jalen Hurts. I do not like him on the Eagles. I do not like the Eagles. I would prefer if he was a Giant, but I just think that he is a wonderful person on and off the field. I like the fact that last year on the sidelines, he was literally putting Nick Sirianni in his place when he was acting a fool, so I appreciated that about him. And one thing I really love about him is his whole management team is all women, and he's the only player in the NFL to have that. So I think that says a lot about him. It says a lot about his character, and I just think overall he seems like a really wonderful person. So I really like him. A lot of questions about playoffs and Tommy DeVito. Okay, for all the new people here, I'll answer this one. How did you become a Giants fan? So my grandfather was a season ticket holder back when they used to play in New York at the Polo Grounds, when they played in New Haven, the whole thing. So he was a big time Giants fan, season ticket holder forever. So everyone in my family is Giants fans. I grew up that way. There was no escaping it, even if I wanted to. But yeah, I just have always loved the Giants. And as I've gotten older, this has just become a hobby of mine. And I've spent, more and more time every year just getting involved with the team and the players and everything like that. So I love them. It's, it's been tough, obviously, over the last 10 years, but I just am one of those people who I'm really like a ride or die fan, and I'll be here through the good and the bad. So I know when everyone's saying that this season's a wash and we should stop watching, whatever, I will never do that. I will never not watch Giants football. I don't care who's on the field. I watched the worst football I've probably ever seen in my life during the Joe Judge era, and I know we thought it couldn't get worse and we saw some bad football this year, but I'm just going to keep watching, It's just, I can't stop. How good do you think Jalen Hyatt can be? Wish we played him more this season. I 100% agree with you. I have been begging to see Jalen Hyatt on the field for every freaking snap. You guys know that. I think we have not seen the unleashed potential of Jalen Hyatt. I think this is the very beginning. I think he could easily develop into our number one wide receiver. I know people are going to say, oh, well, he's on the smaller side and he can't run all these routes and whatever. In the game at Tennessee, when he had those 5 touchdowns, I think it was against Alabama, he ran 5 different routes, which is only the beginning. And I think we're just not seeing that because he's young. There's a lot to learn in the NFL. There's a lot to process. Obviously, the offensive line has been trash, and we have had a revolving door at quarterback. So I think that as the talent around him continues to develop, especially the quarterback perspective, we are going to see a whole new Jalen Hyatt. And I'm really excited about that. And also congrats to Jalen Hyatt, who won the Pepsi Award for Rookie of the Week this week because he had 5 receptions for 109 yards. So awesome job, Jalen. Very excited to see more from him over the next few years. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you know I loved him. I had him rated very high coming out of the draft, and people thought I was insane because I liked him over JSN. One of the reasons why I really liked him over JSN was, the injury bug has been really concerning to me. We have all seen what has happened with Giants wide receivers and literally every other person on this team. So the fact that he didn't have that kind of put him up a notch in my book, but I just felt like everything I read and had seen and watched about him, I just loved, and I was super happy that he's a Giant. So I'm excited for his future here. I'll end it on that note. If you guys have any questions, submit them in the comments. I will answer, or you can submit them to me on Instagram at New York Giants Fangirl. I got a lot of videos up. Even though it's the bye week, I'm keeping you guys entertained with some comedy videos because why not? I need something to entertain people. So check those out. I'm also on TikTok at New York Giants Fangirl. So I will be back next week I will preview the Packers game, and then I'll be back with another Q&A. So I'll see you guys next week.